First of all, let me apologize on the long wait in line. I had no idea these panels were so close together. I ran back from Corner Cafe, so if I suddenly produce a chicken salad sandwich on the table, I apologize now. I promise I'm not gonna do that. There's somebody looking at me like, please don't throw up. Yeah, but there's somebody that would like it and put it on the internet, I'm sure. Anyway, so this is my solo panel. The cool thing about getting to do this panel is I get to talk one-on-one with you guys. We got the idea to do this a long time ago because Monica and I were doing a lot of conventions, Monica Real, and we would be on panels with it would be me and Laura and Travis and Monica and Chris Patton and Lucy, and there would be a hardcore group of Sayuki fans, but only one of them would get to ask a question. Or there would be a bunch of Razafon fans that wanted to talk to Monica and they couldn't get their questions asked. So we had this idea of splitting out and doing our own panels, that way everybody could get to ask the questions they want. Me, it's kind of different because I do so many weird things. I'm also going to be DJing later tonight with 2 other guys, so some people come to ask me what they're going to hear tonight, what are you going to play tonight? Some people ask me about I had one panel where the whole first 20 minutes was about I have 2 prairie dogs, so we talked all about Laverne and Shirley, my 2 prairie dogs. So yeah, I would just say this is as ADD as I am. You'll see, we'll cover lots of ground. But the coolest thing is I've got a bunch of new projects. Finally talk about, last time I was here I couldn't talk about Dragon Ball Z Super, I couldn't talk about Starship Troopers, I couldn't talk about Haikyuu, Food Wars, Gangsta was out. Bunch of stuff. So I've got new ground to cover, but I'm gonna do this super boring, awful quick introduction so that if somebody's like, who is that guy, you'll know. And then the rest is up to you. And then I'll drink my coffee while you come up with questions. So my name is Greg Ayres. I'm extremely ADD and you're gonna figure that out really quickly on this panel. I've been doing voiceover for 18 years now. It's really hard for me to say the word 18 years. There are people that are not as old as I've been doing this, which is creepy. But, and this is officially the longest I've ever stayed at any job, so this I guess is what I'm gonna be when I grow up. So I started working, I was an anime fan as a teenager, but I was a dub hater, which is funny, because I was I'm never watching English in Java in English, I'm only watching Japanese, I was that guy. I was the guy that would watch it in English with the subtitles on and think I caught a mistake every once in a while. I was that fanboy. So the funny thing is, I was a big fan of anime for a long time, and I think the misinterpretation, a lot of people think I was such a big fanboy they just let me do it. That's not really how it worked. I also grew up in theater. I was doing musical theater at the age of 6. Television, film, commercial voiceover, stuff when I was a little kid. So I started doing this, and then when I got to be about 16 or 17, I just wanted to do I wanted to do that. I wanted to scream when I heard music. I wanted to skateboard, I wanted to graffiti, I wanted to do a million other things, and that's the curse/blessing of being super ADD. So I did all of those things. And years later, I would get a chance to audition. And the funny thing is, a lot of people are like, how did you get started in voice acting? My voicemail at work was my audition. Because I still, even though I didn't do acting full time, I would still do a play. If there was a cool play, I would audition for it. If somebody was doing Jesus Christ Superstar, I'm in. If somebody's doing Runaways, I'm in. But you're not gonna catch me auditioning for Showboat. I was that picky actor that was oh, that's cool, I'll do it. So I still had a lot of friends in the theater community, and 2 of them were Monica Real and Chris Patton, who were working constantly at ADV Films. And the funny thing is I knew people that were doing voiceover because my brother, who's also a voiceover artist, which I'm sure I'm gonna get a question about him in a minute, and I'll be glad to tell you that too. But he went to college with all the ADV originals. Spike Spencer was his roommate in college, which is funny because that guy is not Shinji Ikari to me. That's my brother's annoying roommate with a mullet. But Amanda Wynn Lee was in my brother's first improv troupe. Allison Keith was at U of H. Scott Kilgore. All those people are from U of H, which was funny because I was oh, they're in the dub. And I just didn't think too much of it. And so Monica and Chris were working there, and we had just finished a show called Runaways. And they were looking for someone to play the role of this 9-year-old villain in a show. And Monica literally said, oh my God, call my friend, he's in his 30s, he sounds like he's 12. Just call his voicemail. And that's literally what happened. Like one night at like, I guess about 11:30 when I wasn't at my desk, which is weird because I worked overnight sometimes doing programming stuff. I got this call from ADV Films, and it was so funny because I came in Monday morning or whatever, the next day morning, and I was just like, hadn't had my coffee, so it was like a voicemail. And it was like a bunch of angry old white lawyers like, Ayres, I need my laptop fixed. Ayres, I need a network dongle. Ayres, my PowerPoint's not working. Ayres, my email's broken. And then this next message was this Nelly voice that says, oh my God, you sound just like a little child. Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Stephen Foster, I'm with ADV Film. And I was just like, what just happened? And so I called the number back and they wanted me to come in and read for this thing, which I was just like, okay. So the chant, like being an anime fan, even a dub hater, being given the moment, like the opportunity to be in an anime, I was like, yeah, I'll come do that. I'm not gonna tell anybody I don't like dubs. So I went in, and the funny thing is it ended up being between me and a 10-year-old. It was between the two of us for the role. I had the nerve to mad dog a 10-year-old at the final callback. I was like sitting across from him and I was like, Greg, calm down, you're scared. This kid's probably pooped on himself by now. The funny thing is that kid ended up being Kevin Korn, and that was his breakout role, and he and I would later go on to do Dean Angel together, which is funny, because when I tell the story about mad dogging a 10-year-old, like, we later became friends in another show, but the funny thing is I auditioned for a year, and I never got in anything. They loved my voice. They said, you have the weirdest voice, please keep coming back. This is so weird, your voice is so weird, and I was like, thanks, I think. And my first role would be in a show called Steel Angel Kurumi, and now these may be spoilers, but you've had 18 years to watch this show, so I'm not gonna feel really sad. But I played just this little brat at the beginning of the show. I was very proud. I was the first person to curse in the show, so I was like, yeah, did it. And it was just it. I maybe had like 12 lines, and then that was it. And I was like, when I left, I didn't even tell my job. I called in sick the day I recorded. I was like just cool that I was in an anime. Like I didn't care if I ever did it again. I could just say I was in an anime, and that's all I cared about. I was like, yeah. Because in my office at work, my bookshelves were lined with like all the McFarlane Akira figures, and I had the special Tenchi Muyo figures. So like everybody I worked with knew I was this, fanboy or whatever. But like I didn't have any aspirations of like I'm going to be a voice actor. But then they called me in to read for this other thing. They're like, oh, well, now that you've done this, we're ready for you to do your real role. And I was like, I thought I did my real role. I got paid for that. And they're like, no, we're going to have you come in and play a villain at the end of the show. You're the main villain. And I was like, what? And then they said something on it. They said, you'll be sharing this role with Claudia Black. Which I was like, the really hot lady from Farscape? How is that going to work out? And like the way it worked out, I play this super yaoi-ish character, a theme that would follow me my entire career and real life. But I play this little yaoi-ish boy that is trying to convince Nakahito, the main character, to kill off his Steel Angel or robot. He keeps trying to tell her to turn it off. And when she won't, when he won't do, it's confusing because Kira Vincent Davis plays Nakahito, so it's a boy playing a girl, and I'm a boy. Anyway, so when Nakahito refuses to turn off Kurumi, Mikhail backs him up in a corner and starts kissing him, which is very wowie-yowie. And but then he turns into a giant, big-breasted female evil robot played by Claudia Black. So, and it's funny because when I even met her, I didn't think we sounded anything alike. I was like, man, that lady and I don't sound anything alike. And then I heard the transformation, and I was like, huh, yeah, we do. Like, so, and she is short. I was so excited. She's like this tall, like this tall. Because I'm short. I get excited when I meet short people. And I was like, you're little, because I had seen her in Pitch Black, and she's so muscular. She just looks like she's 6 feet tall, and she was like, by me. So yeah, and then I was cool with that being like the only thing I ever did. I was like, oh, now I'm a villain, that's cool. And then the next thing I would audition for would be the thing that would change my career, and it would be the reason I'd have to eventually leave my job. Not really, but it's hard to explain. We got a big property at ADV Films and they cloaked it, which when we talk about cloaking a project, it's a project that's so big that they can't afford to say the name of it to anybody because they don't want word leaking on the internet. So I'll use Attack on Titan, since one of its actors is the reason we were late starting this. Let's say it was Attack on Titan and they didn't want anybody on the internet to get word of it. They would give it a fake name, like they would call it something like Walnuts or something. Like, you're coming in for the Walnut Project, and you're like, never heard of that, okay. Well, so I got called in to read for this thing called Paradise Raiders, and I was like, ooh, that sounds like a video game, that's cool. And so I went in, and I sat down, and I had to sign this thing before I could even take the script, so I knew it was kind of a big deal. But the names of the characters were names of characters from a show that I really loved. They were Genjo Sanzo, Cho Hakai, Sangoku, and Shaigojo, and I was like, is this Sayuki? Oh my god, is this Sayuki? And I started reading through it. It was episode 2, it was the temple episode. I was like, oh my god. So by the time I went in to read, I was spazzing out, like literally spazzing out. So the funny thing is I got that role, and that's the biggest deal to me, to get to work on something that I already liked. I always say it's kind of like being a fan of Kiss and Gene Simmons calling you one day and like, hey, Paul's really sick, you want to come play? Like, there's no way to describe what it feels like to be a part of something you dig, other than like that. Well, the funny thing is, that's not, like, we don't just work on one project. If another project comes up, you audition for that at the same time, and you've probably heard a lot of us talking about multiple projects at the same time. Well, so while I was working on Sayuki, I also got cast in Full Metal Panic, Super Gals, Neoranga, and one other thing, I can't remember. But I ended up like working on 5 shows at once. And I was literally taking every single vacation day I had to record. And I went to my boss at the beginning of Sayuki and I was like, hey look, I have a chance to do this thing that is a big deal to me. Like, I have a chance to be a part of something I'm a big fan of, and like, not everybody gets this chance, and you can say no, but no, I might quit if you say no. So this is where we are. That kind of tells you who I am. Like, you can say no, but I'm gonna quit. And so they let me do it, but I don't think they ever realized, and I had no way of knowing that I was gonna spend every waking hour recording for the next 5 or 6 months. So I was just almost to the point where I was like out of vacation days. I was working overnights so that I could record during the day. I was doing really weird, nerdy, legal law software stuff. I was working on litigation support software, which was really cool and nerdy in a nerdy kind of way, but like, you don't need all those details. But the funny thing was, I was trying to figure out how to approach my boss and go, hey, look, getting yelled at by a bunch of overprivileged old white men is really not my my thing. I think I'm gonna go do this acting thing. But luckily for me, the law firm I worked for was the legal counsel, the outside legal counsel for a giant evil oil and gas empire that got in a lot of trouble. And we were suddenly all without a job. And I'm not sure if legally I can say their name, but it rhymes with Enron. So we all got laid off. And the funny thing was, I was trying to think of a way out, and then I went to this room, and it's so funny because like most people think of the room they got laid off in as like jail. To me, this was like the room where my life began, because I got brought into this room and they're like, we're gonna pay you for the next 3 months. We're giving you a severance package of like, it was like $4,000 or $5,000. You're getting all your vacation money, and if you sign this other thing saying you won't pursue any kind of legal, filing against us, we'll give you another $5,000 or $6,000. I was like, so you're gonna give me money, and I don't have to go to work. You're gonna give me some more money, and then you're gonna give me more money if I autograph this thing that says I won't sue you, and I get to go make cartoons. Yeah, like, this is an okay deal. I'm good with this. And the funny thing is, the night before, I had watched Willy Wonka, like the original Willy Wonka, and I love TV Mike, is one of my favorite characters, and he has this great thing he says right before he goes, and he's like, well, see you on TV, and that's the last thing he says before he goes to the factory. So like, on the way out of the room, first of all, my boss thought I was having a nervous breakdown because everybody else was freaking out, and I was like, yeah, sure. And on the way out the door, I didn't say a whole lot. I said, well, see you on TV. And that was the last thing I said on the way out of the building, which is great because I saw one of the ladies from Human Resources, and she's like, you know, you said we were going to see you on TV, and I heard your voice coming out. I was like, I was a jackass. That wasn't serious. Like, there's no way I could have predicted this would happen. But, so I'm super lucky. I managed to work for ADV Films right up until their crash, and I did fantastic projects with them like Chrono Crusade and Full Metal Panic, Hello Kitty's animation theater. Like, how many guys get excited about, well, I'm in Hello Kitty, but that's me. I got to work with the Carl Masick. I got to work with, you know, anime, like legendary Carl Masick, who was the creator of Robotech. And by creator, I mean he chopped up Macross and made a different show out of it. I got to just work with fantastic people, and then at a certain point, Monica and I were doing so much at ADV, and Funimation, like the funny thing is at the time, Funimation only did kids shows. They only did like Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, but they didn't do like anything bloody. And I know somebody's gonna get, he called Yu Yu Hakusho a kids show, whatever, like deal. But they weren't doing like hardcore anime. And at the time, they had just started doing like some hardcore anime titles. And Monica really wanted to work on this show called Kitty Grade that they got. And she's like, I'm gonna go over and tell them, my name is Monica Rial and I wanna work on Kitty Grade. And I just thought it was so funny. I was like, all right, good luck. Go, let me know how that works out for you. And she did. We were in con and she walked right over to the Funimation table and she's like shaking hands. And she got cast as Lumiere in Kitty Grade, and that so Monica is the reason we all started working at Funimation as well. I think after Monica, Vic went down to do Broly and Dragon Ball Z, and I think myself and Chris Patton were next to follow. I think I was in Spiral and Case Closed, and then Chris Patton came down for, I can't remember what was after that. But then we started working for both studios, and then the coolest thing about that is we got to work on everything cool. Like, we were not only doing the cool shows at ADV, but we were doing the cool shows at Funimation too. So I was doing Samurai 7 and all these really cool things. And then the market kind of crashed out, and I just realized my friend's here. Then from the ashes of the company that was ADV Films, a new company rose called Sentai Filmworks. And the coolest thing about Sentai is they were like the boutique anime thing. They were like, whereas some people were like always fighting over the big titles, ADV was fighting over the little titles that had the cool stories. So I quickly, my first show I did for Sentai Filmworks was a little known show called Clannad. I'm kidding, it's a very well known show, but it's a very what show? Show. It would be my first exposure to Key, and the cool thing is Sentai and Key have a really wonderful working relationship. So and if you don't know who Key Animation is, if you've ever watched a show that was totally adorable and had characters that you fall in love with and then they all die, that's probably Key. Or the cutest one dies, that's Key. So I did Clannad, Angel Beats, F A Tale of Memories, Kokoro Connect, just all these really great sad shows. In fact, when we did Little Busters, I went in for the show called Little Busters, and I'm like, oh, somebody's gonna die. And we got to the end of the first season, and I was like, maybe not. We'd like to book you for season 2. Oh yeah, somebody's gonna die. And got to the end of season 2, and we're like, man, maybe it's gonna be okay. And then they were like, we'd like to book you for 4 hours for Little Busters for free. And I was like, yep, this is where it's gonna happen. So the cool thing is I've had the lion's share of work. I'm super lucky I get to work on the shows that I do. My brother also works alongside of me. My brother's a director. He directed for ADV Films for a long time and then made the jump to Sentai, and he was a full-time director for Sentai. But he's also a voice actor, probably most notably known for Frieza now. He's the second voice of Frieza, which is kind of cool because I'm the new voice I'm Frost, so my brother and I are Frost and Frieza, which is kind of fun. He's like Frieza, only he's a bigger jackass, which is funny. But yeah, so that's kind of my story. I probably didn't say the name of your favorite anime. Somebody will be like, you didn't say Oron. I didn't say Ghost Stories either, and that's my favorite. So yeah, but I gotta leave something for you to ask about. So now, this is the easiest part of the panel. I will look at you awkwardly and drink my coffee, and you think of questions to ask me, and I will answer them, maybe truthfully. Yes, you already have your hand up.
What was your favorite moment recording with Todd Haverford?
This is the answer that gets me in so much trouble. None of them. We never recorded together, and there's this whole thing on the internet. If you look for it, you can find it. There's this whole thing where these girls are like talking about how much I hate Ouran High School Host Club, but it's not true. It's because I answered this question honestly once. I hated recording Ouran. I hated recording it. Not because I hated the show, it's a technical actor thing. Whoever recorded first decided how we said something. And as an actor, that is the worst situation in the world. Because no two people talk alike. Like, if Todd and I both went into a room and said, how's it going? We would say it would be totally different. Like, I'd be like, how's it going? Todd'd be like, how's it going? You know, like, and it's totally different. So whoever recorded first, the other one was just a parrot for the rest of the session. So Todd and I would jump through hoops to try to record first. We would like try to schedule ahead of each other so that no one was parroting each other. And the funny thing is, people were like, what's your favorite episode of Ouran? I was like, the one where I'm the narrator. The one where it's just Kaoru's voice, because it's the only time you felt like you could act. But like, so here's the trade-off on that before anybody's Ouran panties get in a ruffle. The funny thing is, it made watching the show fun, because I hated recording it. It was not fun recording it. It was so technical and so like, unlike what I normally do at work. But because of that, like, it made it twice as much fun to just sit back and enjoy it. Then when it was all in sync and it sounded weird and we sounded like two little, you know, little automatons or whatever, then it was fine. But like doing it, it was horrible. And the funny thing about it is, it's the best / worst part about fandom. I can give you a legitimate reason, and so you're like, Greg Ayres said he hated Ouran High School. I'm like, nah, I never ever said that. It's like, there's this whole war, there was a war between me and a bunch of Homestuck fans because somebody asked me, was I a Homestuck fan? And I said, no, here's why. And I was not saying anything negative about the strip, you know, I even know it's not even called Homestuck, like Adventures in MS Paint. It's just that I'm ADD and I can't be committed to reading anything regularly. And I know I would get lost, but like these girls went on the internet, like, Greg Ayres hates, or you know, hates Homestuck, and they were calling me homophobic, which is hysterical, and all this weird stuff. And it was just because they didn't listen. So like, I do love Ouran. Like probably the best thing to say about Ouran is we had the best director we could have had, because when you're in a show, you have to trust a director, and there's nothing you couldn't ask Caitlin that she couldn't answer about the show. She knew everything there was to know. She even recorded in Usachan slippers most days. So like, there's nobody that was more into this show than Caitlin, and so we had the perfect director, and that's why the dub came out the way that it did, is because all the pieces were in the right place, and whether it was not fun technically is not even important. It's that it sounds good at the end of the day. So I do not hate Ouran, for the record, but I will never agree to play another twin again as long as I live, probably. Yeah, you've got a question.
You mentioned you work for Sentai Filmworks.
Yeah.
How familiar are you with Victor Ireland?
Victor Ireland, I'm not real sure. Is he an actor?
He is the director of Sentai Filmworks. As far as my knowledge goes, maybe I'm mistaken. After working with Untitled in the late 90s, early 2000s, Victor Ireland went to the program.
No, I don't. The co-founder of Sentai is Griffin Vance. The co-founder of Sentai is Griffin Vance. It's Griffin Vance, Matt Greenfield, Janice Williams. There's a bunch of people, but like it's a group of people. Victor Ireland is not a name I'm familiar with at all. That doesn't mean they're definitely the office side of what we do and the production side of what we do are always separated. Like at Funimation, production is on one whole side of the building and business is over here. Sentai is a little smaller operation, but the studios are at the front of the building and all of the business offices are at the back. So just like actors, we don't, like I did shows with David Matranka for 3 years before I ever met him. I met him on the set of the live action part of Super Milk Champ. And I'm like, and it was the weirdest thing because I could hear Sanso's voice in another room. And I don't know whether I expected a gun-toting, cigarette-smoking priest, but I rounded the corner and there was like this Abercrombie bro in the next room, and I was like, who are you? But it just shows you like this business is a lot of individual people working on things, and then it all comes together as a project. So I'm not saying he doesn't work there, just not to my knowledge, but he could totally be there. I just know that that's not the founder, because I know I'm pretty good friends with all the people that like were the ADV people that then moved over to Sentai. But so yeah, watch, I'll ask my brother and I'll be like, of course, Victor, you know Victor, he's the guy with the glasses. But like, it's not somebody I interact with for sure. He's definitely not one of the production directors, like he doesn't direct shows. Right now, the only directors for Sentai Filmworks, I think when they started, there was only one director, and it was Stephen Foster, the guy that, you sound just like a little child. And then it was Matt Greenfield and Stephen Foster, and then my brother was added, and then John Swayze and Kyle Jones, and now there's 2 new directors, but like, those are the only people that I've worked for as far as an actor. But like I said, production versus business are always separated, so there's people that we don't meet. Like, there's this nice lady that I didn't even know she's the lady that cuts my check. I'm like, who is that nice lady that always wants? She's like, that's the lady that signs your check. I was like, oh, she's a really nice lady now. So, but yeah, so I don't always know everybody, but we were all pretty, mostly because when ADV crashed, we were in the lurch like everybody else. Most of the actors didn't know what was going on until this other company started. In fact, we started working on Clannad as ADV, and we just thought it was never gonna finish. We're like, what about Clannad? We're in the middle of recording it. And they're like, we don't know. And so like, we didn't know if that project was ever gonna get finished. And then somebody called me, I think it wasn't the regular person that booked hours, it was Janice Williams. She's like, I need to get you to come in and record for a few hours and she said, I don't know the name of the company yet. And I was like, what? And she goes, we're just gonna keep working on this. And that was the idea, is just to keep working on a Clannad, and even if they just sold it to someone else, they wanted to finish the project. And then Acer Media formed, and from that came, you know, Carrot, 14, and Sentai Filmworks, and there's a bunch of different companies, Flickmation and all that. But like that we were actually recording before there was a company. Like we were just like going into the same old studio that used to be ADV. And so we finished that project. So I was kind of stoked that was the first project for Sentai, because it was such a solid thing. You know, we were already midstream on it, so like we were already pretty ingrained in what we were doing. So it was a good launch title for sure. But who's got another one? I haven't looked at you awkwardly and drank coffee. I'm gonna do this now. You asked me a question.
Okay. Have you ever heard of Team 4-Star Dragon Ball Z Bridge? And if so,
of course, they're all friends of mine. Huh?
Who's your favorite actor?
You can't pick a favorite because they're all friends. Oh man, that's like asking me of Octo Pimp and Sparky who my favorite is, the guys that do 50% off. Like Scott Frericks is a close friend. He's what is it, Neko? I don't know any of them by their Team 4-Star names. What is it, Neko? Kaiser Neko, yeah. So he's like one of my closer friends in that group. So I guess I'll pick him. But they're all fantastic. Like they're all really brilliant and funny and.
Okay, my second question is, what's your favorite character?
Oh, I couldn't pick, cause they're all my friends. Like that's like asking me to pick my favorite child. Like they're all great. And those guys, the cool thing about Team 4-Star is they were really the beginning of the industry recognizing fan parodies as something legitimate. Well, Little Karibo started by doing his own thing. Little Karibo had his own thing first, and then became a part of the Team 4-Star thing, because Karibo had, Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. Yeah, but I mean, they're all fantastically pleasant guys. They're all super talented. The coolest thing is, most of them live in Dallas now, and a bunch of them work on Dragon Ball Z. Like, a bunch of them are actually working on the real Dragon Ball Z. So that's kind of cool, and I think it was even cooler because it came into play when we started working on Free. I thought, well, the Team 4-Star guys are in Dragon Ball Z, and so I go into my first session with Jerry Jewell, I was like, okay, you know who you need to get? You need to get these guys that do this thing called 50% off. And he goes, oh, they're already in it. I was like, what? And they had already, Tara McKinney and a bunch of other people had said, you have to get these guys that do this parody. Fans love them. So like, if there's any big thing that I credit Team 4-Star with, it's that. Team 4-Star and Little Karibo are what made the industry sit up and take notice of content providers and say, hey, what you guys are doing is funny and has an audience and all of that. So I think really Team 4-Star was the biggest, you know, like I think the biggest to me is 50% off, just because those guys, whereas Team 4-Star, like I can meet people that are Dragon Ball Z fans that have never seen Abridged. I've never met a free fan that has not seen 50% off. Like it's one of the few things that I'm like, the parody is as popular as the real thing. But
I'm going to be honest, my dream job is to become a voice actor.
Yeah.
And if you could find a way for me to be part of it.
Well, but that's the thing. The Team 4-Star guys just did it themselves. Like that's the cool thing about the internet. Like, and hopefully net neutrality garbage won't get in the way of that. Like, but as long as you have an internet connection and you have a good idea, you can do your own thing. Don't wait for somebody. Like the hardest thing about being an artist in an art-based economy or business is you shouldn't have to wait for somebody to give you permission to be creative. Like and it's easier because I'm a painter, so it like comes naturally. Like I don't wait for somebody to go, you know, I'd really like you to do this spray painted mural for me. I just do it somewhere. I won't tell you where because that would be against the law. But if I feel like painting, I'm going to paint. So like if you want to do voiceover stuff, start doing little radio dramas, start doing little projects of your own, and then build something cool that you don't have to share with anybody else. What you can do is share it with people and bring people you like on board, but like you can create your own way in for sure. And then just like the Team 4-Star guys, now they're in the, you know, now they do professional voiceover stuff too. So yeah, don't give up hope. Like just make your own, start your own fire, you know, like yeah. Don't actually start a real fire. I don't know whether I'd say one is an avenue to the other, because like sometimes like the guys that did Homestar Runner, for instance, kind of wanted to break in animation and it never happened. Like they just did, you know, Homestar Runner, which in and of itself was huge and they made a lot of money doing that. But it's kind of like when somebody, like actors always like when somebody's like, oh, I'd like to be a voice actor. There's some actors like, well, good luck. And then I think the other way to look at it is I think you should follow your dreams because they're what take you to where you're supposed to end up. Like some people start thinking they're going to be a voice actor or an actor and they find out they're just really funny and so they go off and branch off into comedy. Some people think, oh, well, I'm going to be a serious actor and they find out they've got a beautiful singing voice so they go off into music. I think chasing after what you like is what takes you to where you're supposed to be. So like, I say just get out and create and do as much as you can and don't really worry about the end of it. Like I always tell people, learning about acting is way more fun than acting for a living because when you're learning, everything's new and fun and when it's a job, then you're like, ugh, I gotta go record with this person today, you know, like, so like enjoy the ride to get there and, you know, like enjoy the scenery on the way to the amusement park, even though the amusement park is where you work. But I wouldn't say one is necessarily indicative of the other, but I think if you're doing something creative, that would definitely get someone's interest up because, you know, that's what you look for, people with fresh ideas and people with a good attitude and like, I think that's a great starting point. Yeah. A very energetic hand. I can feel the energy coming out of this question. And then I'll go to the back because I see someone waving. My ADD is like, thing moving. Yes. So you first. I can't hear you. What did you say? Oh man. Okay, so here's the thing. You know that it's not actually oop-poo-poo-poo, yeah? And do y'all know why we didn't do the oop-poo-poo-poo? Because that's really important. Because it's my favorite thing of Monokuma. The lady that's the original voice of Monokuma is the original Doraemon. So she is like the most loved character in all of anime. And that's kind of the joke of Monokuma. It's the voice of this lovable bear telling people to kill each other. So when she goes, it's like this weird Doraemon throwback. So when I was called in to read for Monokuma, they said they wanted him part Teddy Ruxpin, part Freddy Krueger. Which the funniest part about this is I used to have a Teddy Ruxpin doll. Yes, because I'm weird. When the batteries started to die, sometimes it would just start talking for no reason by itself, if the cassette was in it. So you could be in your bed, minding your own beeswax, and you'd hear, "Hello, boys and girls," and you're just like, what was that? So like, I literally, when I went in and read for Monokuma the first time, it was just me kind of imitating my Teddy Ruxpin, my evil Teddy Ruxpin. So, but when we came up with the laugh, Bevins wanted him to have like a chuckle, and he had written it nyuk 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 nyuk, and like all I could think of was that awful penguin laugh. So that's what it became, and it was this nyuk 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 nyuk, and it's just this weird little nasally sound, but I love that character. I think my favorite line is when I'm not gonna say, when he's using the Wando butter, and they're like, "What did you do with my friend?" And he goes, "I don't know, but I heard he's gone to a butter place." And that's my favorite, best line ever. But that's one of those voices I don't do very often because it's really, you can hear, like it's really, real weird on my throat. But God, I love that character. Evil has never looked so funny or cute. So yeah, and I have like so many Monokuma plushies, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Somebody else for Moran. I don't know. Because I had the opportunity to audition for anybody I wanted, and I only picked Kaoru. You can double check with Caitlin. I only turned in one audition for Oran, and it was just Kaoru. I had a friend that was an Oran fan, and she described the twins to me, and she described Kaoru as the one that was kind of like a jackass as a kid, and then the older he got, he became like the zen, chill, like twin, and I just love that idea of this like troublemaker who was still like at peace with the world or whatever. So like that's the only twin I auditioned for. I did say this and it got a controversial response because I love to recast shows in my mind. I would have loved to have seen that show with Chris Kaysen as Tamaki because I think there's no person on this earth funnier than Chris Kaysen. But like, that's not saying I think Vic is bad in the role. It's just like I'd like to have heard Brina try Haruhi. I love, when we were doing Beck, the character of Maho was between Laura Bailey and Brina Palencia, and that was Brina's first big role. So it's funny to me, because I wonder if Brina hadn't done Beck, whether she wouldn't have done all these other things. But it's cool. I mean, like, there's no one actor married to any role. Like, you won't ever be the first Romeo or Juliet. Like, that role has been played a million times. So I'd always love to think of somebody else's take on a role, but I don't know anybody else I'd be good for in Oran, except for maybe Honey, and I can't imagine anybody doing Honey but Lucy. Like Lucy, it's really creepy because I love Lucy's performance as Honey, and people are like, "Who's your favorite host?" And I'm like, "Oh, Honey." And then I'm like, wow, that sounded super creepy. Like, yeah, I like the little baby boy, but it's just because it's Lucy doing her baby girl voice, and I think it's so adorable. Like, nobody's funnier than Lucy when she's doing that voice. So, yes, in your hand. You still have it moving. You know how to keep my attention. Oh my God, you couldn't. That's like asking which is like the dirtiest issue of Hustler. Like, they're all so bad. I loved Ghost Stories. It was so funny because when we started it, you can tell, even when you watch it, you can tell at the beginning we're trying to be good. We're like not seeing a lot of dirty things, and by the end, everyone is using the F-bomb, everybody's making like ridiculous jokes. I think my favorite episode, man, it's tough. That's a really hard one to pick. The tunnel through the haunted hill or whatever. Because, only because there's a running joke that went through the whole episode that, like, it was typical, just like the Christian Slater joke that I made in like episode 2 or whatever that lasted the whole show. The way we came up with jokes is we just say weird stuff while we were recording, and then it would eventually form into a joke. Well, so we were doing this episode, and it's basically we have to get to the other side of a mountain, and you can either go through the long haunted tunnel, which will take 2 or 3 hours, or you can walk around, and it would be like 3 days. So of course, because it's the Scooby-Doo anime, like we go through the haunted tunnel. And Leo starts bitching at the beginning of the episode, like, I really hope my parents tape that VH1, whatever happened to Sean Young, which Sean Young was this actress, those of y'all that don't know, who was in Blade Runner, who went crazy when Tim Burton was picked to direct Batman, and she did a lot of crazy things. She stalked Tim Burton, she appeared on David Letterman with a bullwhip and like all this crazy stuff. So we lambasted her the whole episode. Like we literally just went in hard on Sean Young, and like, the thing about that show is we got away with doing things you could never do now. There are jokes that we told now that are so politically incorrect we would be murdered for doing now. And like we picked on her drug issues. Like in fact, the very end, as the camera's panning up, it's like that we finally made it through the tunnel, and the camera's panning the sunset, and I'm like, man, I really hope I get to see that VH1 special. Sean Young was so good in Stripes and Blade Runner. Oh, it was like, she was so good in Blade Runner and Stripes. Remember Stripes? And as his camera is fading to black, he goes, Coke is bad. And it's the last thing you hear. So Chris Kaysen found this hysterical picture of Sean Young naked in a fur coat going, and making this crazy face, and he would put it, this is how long ago, he would put it on my MySpace with the words, you will be hearing from our attorneys. And he would do it over and over and over. But that's my favorite episode. But the favorite joke, of course, is the Christian Slater joke, because that was mine, and I never really thought it was gonna have any traction, and that was the joke that went the whole show, so. But I don't think I'll ever enjoy anything as much as Ghost Stories. Ghost Stories is the most fun I've ever had recording. Monica and I were booed off stage when we premiered it at Otakon. We literally booed. It was so good. We were like laughing. And the good thing is, it couldn't happen to 2 better people, because Monica and I could care less. We're like, if you don't want us to talk, we'll go eat. We'd much rather be somewhere else eating or hanging out. Like, so these people were like, boo, boo. Like, we left, we made jokes, we're like, okay, we're gonna go get some free booze, we'll see you later, like, we left. But then, and it was funny because word got out on the street that we were doing what we were doing to the show, and there was all this butthurt going around like, I cannot believe that ATV Films is wrecking the historical anime that is, and like, we're like, this is the most boring show I've ever seen. I dare you to watch this with the subtitles on. And so, when we did the show, like, you know, we were met with all these boos, and so we thought everybody hated it, and we didn't care, because we'd already gotten paid, and we thought it was funny. And then it started getting traction as like the Rocky Horror of anime, and we beat Full Metal Alchemist for Dub of the Year that year in Anime Insider, and they referred to it as the little anime that could. So like, it's such a funny thing, like, you could never make that. It's like people are always like, I want the next Dragon, but you'll never make the next Dragon Ball Z. Things like that just happen, and they're wonderful when they happen, and I just feel lucky that I got to, you know, write and do that show. So funny. Who's got another one? Yeah.
I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
One, I love the little brother in the ghost story.
Yeah, that's Christine Otten. Most people don't realize that's Izumi from Full Metal Alchemist, yeah.
But because of how I watched specific animes and all, I can only ever see the Sunahara.
Oh yeah, there's some people that's like, Sunahara is a big deal. Like, when I met that character, it's always weird when I say I met that character. The first time I read for that character, I thought he was horrible. I just hated that little kid. And it didn't stop me from being annoying like him, but like, the funny thing is when that show gets super sad, boy did I want to see Sunahara. I'm like, oh, where is he? Somebody say all that in the toilet. But so yeah, like, I like that character a lot now. And he ended up kind of growing up, just a little, not much.
Do you think you ever got back to Komodo?
No, not equally, no. But I think it all works out the way it's supposed to, so yeah.
So you probably have a lot of main cast credits to your name, but is there any particular, like maybe one-day recording session or very small bit part that you did that was very memorable to you?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I love that question. Because I like those roles more than leads, actually. There are some actors like, I want to be Naruto, I want to be anything that's popular. Like, I'm not that guy. I want to play something cool. And like, there's two that come to mind. I play a character named Will in a show called Salty Ray. And in fact, it's where my legacy began. I'm apparently make the best throw-up noise in the business, which is super weird to be known as the throw-up guy. But it's a character, and this is not giving anything away, because the first thing you see is him vomiting blood into a sink. He's dying of consumption. Like, when you meet him, he's dying. And Salty gets to know him, and he's like building a plane out of junk. He's like just salvaging junk and building a plane. And it's super sad, because like it's a really, it is literally an episode character, or episode and a half, I should say. And as soon as they get the plane in the air, he dies while he's flying, you know. They get in, and like Salty's sitting in the back, she's like, and blood goes across her face, and it's like, and then you see the plane go, like, and just, like, and luckily she doesn't die, but like, and then he comes back, she puts the plane back together and flies it. She's determined to take his plane up, and he appears as the ghost on the wing, and like has this beautiful monologue, like talking to her and thanking her for that. Man, I don't care about a lead role. That's a cool role. Like, that's a super cool role. There's another show that's a fairly controversial show called Dance in the Vampire Buns, and I play this character named Hiko, who's, for those of y'all that don't know, it's about a 5,000-year-old vampire that takes possession of a 9-year-old girl's body, and we'll just leave it there. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And when they ask me, they're like, are you sure you're okay with that? I'm like, well, technically it's a 5,000-year-old cosplaying as a 9-year-old girl, so like, it's fine in my mind. But when I auditioned for that show, and I can't say the name of the director, because the director was so uncomfortable by the content, he had his name removed. So like, in fact, Monica and I are two of the only actors that are like, even if we use a fake name, they recognize our voice. Yeah, put my real name on it. Like, it was one of those things, because somebody would be like, that's actually Greg Ayres, like, so I just said, whatever. But, so, like, Hiko is this character that when you meet him, he's getting the snot beat out of him by bullies, and this vampire basically goes, you know, you don't have to put up with this. I can feed on you, and you'll be strong, and all these things. And so he lets this vampire feed on him, and the next time you see him, he's like throwing people. He's freaking out, like ripping this class to pieces, not realizing there's a hierarchy to vampires, and he accidentally puts his hands on the wrong vampire, and the dude slams his face into the table and breaks his feeder fang, and he like, and it's such a rare moment because he goes from unhinged to weak in like one stroke, and so it's a really cool thing to get to do. But then, and this is another spoiler, but you've had several years to see it, the next time you see him, he's a suicide bomber. He's getting onto a crowded subway train, and someone's trying to stop him because they realize what he's doing, and there's this great last moment where he's like, no, Hiko, you have so much to live for, and he's like, no, people are horrible. People stand on the backs of the weak, but he has this great speech, and the guy that's trying to save him is the only person that's ever cared about him, and he goes, it's okay. At least I had one friend, and that's it. And I was just like, yeah, sign me up. So when I auditioned for it, the director, there's a bunch of great young male characters in the show, and he goes, okay, can I ask you for a huge favor? And I was like, yeah. He goes, you could read for and be perfect for a lot of characters in the show, but I have this one character that I really need you to play. And so I was like, okay, well, hit me, what is it? And he told me, and I was like, oh no, I want to play that guy. And he goes, no, it's only 4 hours of recording. I was like, I don't care, I want to be the suicide bomber kid. So like, so yeah, I love those roles. I think those roles are way more interesting sometimes. I think the lead is just, I've got a sword, I'm a good guy. Like, sometimes it's not even interesting. So like, those little side characters are awesome. I loved my character in Fullmetal Alchemist, like, just because he's such a tiny character. I could do the most horrible witchy things with my voice because I was only going to do it for a few minutes. So yeah, I love small characters. They're my favorite, actually. Like, not my favorite, I like Monokuma, but like, I mean, side characters are interesting for sure. Anybody, how much time do we have, Star? We're like, what? It's three now? Okay, I think we should have one more question since we were forced to wait in the hall 10 minutes. So one more, and then we'll be good. Look, she's like, yeah, go ahead, yeah, thank you. One more question, and then we'll go. Yes?
Was there ever a joke in ghost stories that y'all self-censored?
Yes, actually there's several. I'll tell you the ones that I kicked out. There were a bunch of Hurricane Katrina jokes, and I would not do them. I was just like, nope, that's down the road, and that's not funny. There were also 2 jokes about actors that no one believed were actually dead, and they had just died, and I'm like, we cannot do that. There was a Jonathan Brandis joke, and there was a Richard Pryor joke. 2 Richard Pryor jokes made it in, but the Jonathan Brandis joke, he had literally just taken his life. Like, I mean, it had been like 3 weeks, and Steven's like, oh, like Jonathan Brandis, who used to have a career. I was like, don't say that, please. There were several times where the cast were like, okay, I'm uncomfortable saying that, which is hard to believe, because some of the shit we did say is pretty outrageous. But I think as long as you're laughing and it's enjoyable, I mean, lampooning political figures and movie stars, that's one thing, but like poking fun at someone's misery or tragedy, like, I don't think any of us like are that cold-hearted. So we're like, there were jokes that Steven were like, oh, it'd be funny. Like, no, Steven, nope, not doing it, nope. So we have a little good taste. I know it's hard to believe watching that show, but we do. Anyway, there's one last thing I want to tell you real quick, because it's not, I don't know if it's really well understood. There is a photo session later on that is a paid photo session, and those of y'all that know me know I'm super anti give me your money. There was a lot of emphasis on doing this, and so the only way I was comfortable doing it is if all of the proceeds went to my brother's crowdfunding thing. For those of y'all that don't know, my brother was diagnosed with a terminal illness this year, and he's awaiting a double lung transplant. So, not to be a downer, please enjoy the rest of your weekend. No, he's in good health right now, and he's in good spirits, and we're raising money like a mofo to help him, and it's a long road, but so know that, like, and I'm gonna say this, know that if you want a picture with me anywhere else except the bathroom, I'm still totally cool with taking pictures anywhere you want and signing anything you want. This is just this other thing that ikkicon's letting us do to raise money for my bro. Other people do it, and it's for profit. I just want to make sure everybody knows I'm not making a dime. This is all going to my brother. So anyway, with that in mind, thank everyone for being patient. We had to wait longer than you guys. Thank y'all for being cool. And thank our programming person who's like, yeah, do it. Thank you. Look, she's like, yeah. So thank you guys, and I'll see y'all in a little bit.